Commander Dae-ho Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance watching the stars through the main view screen. The ship moved quietly through space toward the Kepler 442 system. His mission was simple: find new worlds, map them, report back to Earth. The Defiance was humanity's best ship. Fast engines, strong shields, smart computers. But Dae-ho knew it was still small compared to what might be out there in the galaxy. "Commander, we are reaching the asteroid field," said communications specialist Hana Choi from her station. She was young but smart. Earth Command had picked her for this mission because she could speak 5 languages and learn new ones fast. Dae-ho nodded. "Good work, Hana. Woo-bin, what do your sensors show?" Tactical Officer Woo-bin Lee looked at his screen. He was a big man with quick hands and a sharp mind. "The asteroids are rich in rare metals, sir. Perfect for building new ships. But I am getting some strange readings deeper in the field." "What kind of strange?" Dae-ho asked. "Energy signatures. They look artificial. Maybe old mining equipment left by someone else." Dae-ho felt a chill run down his back. Humanity had not met other intelligent life yet, but they knew it had to exist, somewhere. The universe was too big for humans to be alone. "Yujin, take us in slow," he ordered. Chief Engineer Yujin Park was at her station near the back of the bridge. She was the best engineer in the human fleet. Her fingers moved over the controls like a pianist playing music. "Engines at quarter. Speed, Commander. All systems running smooth." The Defiance moved into the asteroid field. Large rocks floated past the ship. Some were as big as cities, others were small as cars. The ship's computers helped them avoid crashes. "Commander," Woo-bin said. His voice was tight. "I am reading multiple large objects ahead. They are not asteroids." On screen, Dae-ho ordered. The main view screen changed. What they saw made everyone on the bridge go silent. Ships. Massive ships unlike anything humans had ever built. They were dark gray and shaped like spears. Each one was 10 times bigger than the Defiance. There were dozens of them waiting in the asteroid field. "My God," Hana whispered. "Red alert," Dae-ho said. "All hands to battle stations. Hana, try to send a message to Earth Command. Tell them what we found." Alarms began to sound throughout the ship. The bridge lights changed to red. Crew members ran to their positions. "I cannot get a signal out, Commander," Hana reported. "Something is blocking all communications." "Sir, the alien ships are moving," Woo-bin announced. "They are surrounding us." Dae-ho watched the view screen. The alien ships moved like a pack of hunters. Fast and coordinated, they knew exactly what they were doing. "Can we run?" he asked Yujin. "Not with this many enemies, Commander. They are faster than us and they know these asteroids better." A new voice filled the bridge. It was deep and harsh. The words were in an alien language that sounded like metal scraping against stone. "What are they saying?" Dae-ho asked Hana. She worked at her computer trying to translate. "The computer is analyzing the language patterns. It thinks they are demanding we surrender." "Tell them we are peaceful explorers," Dae-ho ordered. Hana sent the message. The response came back quickly, in the same harsh language. "They say all lesser species must submit to the Velkari Empire," Hana translated. "They want us to shut down our engines and prepare to be boarded." Dae-ho looked around his bridge. His crew was scared but ready to fight. These people had families, back on Earth. They had dreams and hopes for the future. He would not let aliens take them without a fight. "Like hell," he said. "Woo-bin, target their lead ship. Yujin, give me everything the engines have. Hana, keep trying to get a message to Earth." "Yes, sir." They all replied. The Defiance turned and accelerated toward the largest alien ship. Its weapons powered up and fired bright beams of energy. The shots hit the alien ship's shields and exploded in flashes of light. The alien ship barely seemed to notice. "Our weapons are not strong enough," Woo-bin reported. "Their shields are too powerful." The alien ships began firing back. Their weapons were different from human ones. Instead of energy beams, they shot something that looked like liquid fire. When it hit the Defiance, it ate through the hull like acid. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Yujin announced. "Emergency bulkheads. are holding, but we are losing atmosphere. Keep fighting, Daeho ordered. The battle lasted only 10 minutes. The human ship was brave but outmatched. More alien weapons hit them. The shields failed. The engines started smoking. Commander, I can overload the main reactor, Yujin said over the noise of alarms. It might take some of them with us. Daeho was about to say yes when another blast hit the engineering section. The explosion was huge. Yujin screamed once, then her voice cut off. Yujin, Daeho called. There was no answer. Engineering is gone, sir, Wubin reported. His voice was sad and angry. Yujin is dead. Hana was crying at her station but still trying to work. I got through to Earth for 3 seconds, she said. I told them about the aliens. I do not know if they understood. Another blast hit the bridge directly. The ceiling fell down. Sparks flew from broken computers. Wubin was crushed under a fallen beam. Hana was thrown against the wall and did not get up. Daeho found himself alone on the ruined bridge. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his head. His left arm was broken, but he was alive. The alien ship surrounded the dying Defiance. Daeho could see smaller ships leaving them, boarding craft coming to take what was left of his ship and crew. He tried to reach for his sidearm to keep fighting, but his broken arm would not work right. The pain was too much. He fell to his knees as the boarding craft attached to his ship. The airlock opened with a hiss. Large figures in dark armor walked onto the bridge. They were taller than humans and moved like soldiers. Their faces were hidden behind helmets, but Daeho could see glowing eyes watching him. One of them spoke in the harsh alien language. One replied and pointed at Daeho. They seemed to be arguing about something. Finally, the largest alien walked over to Daeho. It removed its helmet, showing a face that looked like a cross between a lizard and a wolf. Sharp teeth, dark eyes, scales instead of skin. You fight well for a primitive species, it said in broken English. Your ship has interesting technology. You will be valuable. Go to hell, Daeho said. The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. I am War Commander Thexra of the Velkari Empire. You are now my property, human. Try to resist, and I will kill you slowly. 2 smaller aliens grabbed Daeho and put metal chains on his wrists and ankles. The chains were heavy and cold. They hurt his broken arm. As they dragged him off his ship, Daeho looked back at the bodies of his friends. Yujin, who had died trying to save them. Wubin and Hana, who had fought until the end. Good people who would never see Earth again. The aliens took him to their ship. It was huge inside with long corridors and rooms full of strange machines. They threw him into a small cell with no windows, the door locked with a sound like breaking bones. Daeho sat in the darkness and thought about Earth, about the message Hana had tried to send. He hoped someone had heard it. He hoped humanity would be ready when the aliens came for them. But for now, he was alone, chained, captured. The last survivor of the first meeting between humans and the Velkari Empire. 10. Years of hell were about to begin. The Velkari homeworld of Veltharion was nothing like Earth. The sky was purple and 2 suns burned overhead. The air smelled like metal and smoke. Giant cities made of black stone stretched as far as Daeho could see. War Commander Thexra had brought him here as a prize. A rare human from a species the Velkari had never conquered before. Daeho was kept in chains and put on display like an animal in a zoo. For the first year, he tried to escape every chance he got. The Velkari guards would catch him and beat him. Then they would put him back in his cell with heavier chains. After the 10th failed escape, Thexra came to see him. You are stubborn, human, the war commander said, but you are also stupid. There is nowhere to run. Your world is probably ashes by now. Accept your fate. Daeho spat at him. Humanity will never give up. We will find you and make you pay. Thexra hit him hard enough to break his nose. Keep believing in fairy tales, slave. Tomorrow you start working in the weapon foundries. The foundries were hell. Daeho worked 16 hours a day making weapons for the Velkari fleet. The heat was unbearable. The toxic fumes burned his lungs. Many slaves died from exhaustion or poisoning, but Deho survived, and he learned. He met other slaves from different worlds. There was Miradesh, a brilliant engineer from the water world Hydros. Her people breathed through gills and had skin, like dolphins. She had been captured when the Velkari poisoned her planet's oceans. They took everything, she told Deho in broken Velkari. My family, my home, my people are dying in camps on dead worlds. Then there was Corvin, a warrior philosopher from the desert planet Saurus. His people looked like walking lizards with wise eyes and strong hands. The Velkari had enslaved his entire species after a war that lasted 50 years. The Velkari respect only strength, Corvin said, but they do not understand that true strength comes from unity, not domination. Deho slowly learned their languages. Hydrani sounded like singing water. Sarid was deep and thoughtful like distant thunder. He also learned Velkari, though he hated every word of it. The guards treated him like dirt. They called him soft skin and weak blood. They made him do the most dangerous jobs. But Deho endured. He watched. He listened. He planned. By his third year in chains, he understood how Velkari society worked. Everything was about rank and power. The strong ruled the weak, but there were cracks in their system. Many younger Velkari were tired of endless wars. They wanted something better but were afraid to speak up. One of these was Sub-Commander Yelthar, Thexra's younger brother. Unlike his brutal sibling, Yelthar sometimes showed mercy to the slaves. He would give them extra food or medicine when the guards were not looking. Deho's chance came during his 5th year of captivity. A group of desperate slaves from the mining world Asterion tried to escape. They had nothing to lose. Their plan was simple and stupid. Rush the guards and try to steal a ship. It failed badly. The Velkari guards killed most of the rebels quickly, but one of them had a bomb made from stolen explosives. When it went off, it brought down part of the foundry ceiling. Yelthar was trapped under the rubble. The other Velkari were busy killing the remaining rebels. They did not see their sub-commander bleeding to death under a pile of metal beams. Deho saw him. The smart thing would have been to walk away. Let the enemy officer die. But something inside him would not allow it. Maybe it was his training as a human officer. Maybe it was just basic decency. He crawled under the twisted metal and started pulling Yelthar free. The Velkari was unconscious and bleeding from a head wound. Deho used his torn shirt to stop the bleeding and gave him mouth-to-mouth breathing until he started coughing. When the other guards found them, Deho was still trying to help Yelthar. They were shocked. A slave saving a Velkari officer was unheard of. Why? Yelthar asked him later when he recovered. I am your enemy. My people enslaved you. Deho shrugged. You are a person in trouble. That is enough. Something changed in Yelthar's eyes. He started asking Deho questions about humans, about Earth, about why his people fought so hard for freedom. We believe all intelligent life has value, Deho explained. Even our enemies. That does not mean we will not fight when we have to, but we fight to protect, not to conquer. That sounds weak to me, Yelthar said, but he did not sound convinced. Over the next 2 years, Yelthar visited Deho often. They talked about philosophy and war and the meaning of strength. The young Velkari officer was clearly struggling with what he had been taught versus what he was learning. During this time, Deho was secretly organizing the other slaves. Miradesh used her engineering skills to build hidden communication devices from scrap metal. Corvin taught fighting techniques to slaves who had never held weapons. Deho planned and coordinated everything. They were careful, very careful. They only recruited slaves they could trust completely. They practiced in shifts so the guards would not notice. They gathered information about ship movements and guard rotations. But their biggest breakthrough came when Yelthar accidentally left. His personal data pad in Deho's cell, the human copied everything he could before returning it. What he found made his heart race. Hidden in the military files were reports about Earth. The planet had not been destroyed. Humanity was still alive and growing stronger. They had built new ships and weapons. They were looking for their lost explorer vessel. The Velkari High Command knew this. They were afraid of humanity's rapid technological progress. That was why they kept it secret from their own people. My brother lied too. You, Yelthar said quietly when Deho confronted him with the truth. The Empire lies to everyone, even to us. Then help us, Deho said. Help us fight back. Yelthar stared at him for a long moment. If I do this, there will be no going back. I will be a traitor to my own species. Or you will be a hero who helped end an unjust war. The sub-commander nodded slowly. What do you need? Over the next year, their secret rebellion grew. Slaves on a dozen worlds learned about the plan. Yelthar provided security codes and ship schedules. Miradesh built weapons from industrial equipment. Corvin trained fighters in hand-to-hand combat. Deho had spent 7 years learning everything he could about his captors, their language, their technology, their weaknesses. He had suffered. He had been broken. But he had rebuilt himself into something new. He was no longer just a human officer. He was a leader who could unite different species against a common enemy. He spoke 7 languages and understood dozens of alien cultures. The Velkhari had tried to break him, but instead they had forged him into the weapon that would destroy them. The chains on his wrists were still there, but his mind was free, and soon, if their plan worked, he would free everyone else too. War Commander Thexra still thought he owned a broken human slave. He had no idea he was about to face the most dangerous enemy the Velkhari Empire had ever created. Captain Somin Yang stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance and stared at the star charts. 5 years had passed since the Defiance had vanished near Kepler 442. 5 years of searching empty space for any sign of Commander Deho Kim and his crew. Captain, long-range sensors are picking up metal debris, reported her science officer. It matches the composition of human hull plating. Somin's heart jumped. Take us there, full speed. The Vengeance was humanity's newest warship. After Hana Choi's desperate 3-second message about aliens, Earth had built a fleet designed for war. Bigger guns, stronger shields, faster engines. They would not be caught helpless again. When they reached the debris field, Somin's hopes crashed. The pieces were too small and old to be from the Defiance, just scraps from some ancient battle between unknown species. Keep searching, she ordered. Deho is out there somewhere, I can feel it. Meanwhile, on Veltharion, Deho was making the discovery that would change everything. Yelthar had brought him a captured human data core from a recent skirmish. At the edge of Velkhari space, the sub-commander thought it contained only technical information. He was wrong. This cannot be right, Deho whispered as he read the data. His hands shook as he scrolled through file after file of information about Earth. The planet was not only alive, it was thriving. New colonies on Mars and Europa, advanced ships exploring the galaxy, a military buildup that made the old Earth fleet look like toys. Humanity had taken Hana's warning seriously, but more shocking was what he found in the personal files. Letters from families, news reports, cultural updates. Humans had not forgotten their lost explorers. Streets were named after the Defiance crew. Eugen Park had a space station named in her honor. There were memorials and songs and stories. His people had not given up hope. The Empire has been lying, Yelthar said when Deho showed him the data. We have been told that humans were a minor threat, primitive and weak. But these ships, these weapons, they rival our own technology. Deho nodded grimly. Your leaders know humanity is dangerous. That is why they keep us here in secret. They do not want their people to know about a species that might actually beat them in a fair fight. That night, Deho called a secret meeting with Miradesh and Corvin. They gathered in an abandoned section of the foundry where the surveillance equipment had broken down years ago. Earth is still free, he told them. Humanity is coming to find us. Miradesh clicked her teeth together, a sign of excitement among her people. This changes everything. If we can coordinate our rebellion with a human attack, we could break the Empire, Corvin finished. But we need to act fast. If the Velkhari discover what we know, they will kill us all. Over the following months, their secret network grew rapidly. Word spread through the slave populations on dozens of worlds. Humans were coming. The Empire had lied about their strength. Hope was possible. Yelthar brought them more intelligence about Velkari fleet movements and defense plans. The young officer was fully committed now, horrified by the lies his people had told him since birth. I always wondered why we needed so many wars, he confided to Deho. My instructors said it was to bring civilization to primitive species. But I have met you. I have met Miradesh and Corvin. You are not primitive. You have wisdom and compassion that many Velkari lack. Your people are not evil, Deho replied, but your system is. It teaches you that might makes right. That conquest is glorious, but true strength comes from cooperation and understanding. Meanwhile, Miradesh was working on their most ambitious project yet. Using salvaged parts and stolen equipment, she was building a long-range transmitter. If they could boost its power enough, they might be able to send a message to human space. The problem is energy, she explained to Deho in her musical Hydrani language. We need to tap into the main power grid without being detected. One mistake, and we will all be executed. Corvin had been training groups of slaves in combat techniques. Not just fighting, but strategy and tactics. The rebellion was becoming an army. We have fighters on 17 worlds now, he reported. But we need weapons. Real weapons, not just industrial tools converted for fighting. The solution came from an unexpected source. A group of young Velkari engineers, friends of Yelthar, had grown disgusted with their empire's endless wars. They began secretly supplying the rebellion with military-grade equipment. We want to build something better, one of them told Deho through Yelthar. The Empire has brought us nothing but death and fear. Maybe it is time for change. 8 years into his captivity, Deho had become something unprecedented in galactic history. A human who could speak and think like a dozen different species. A leader who understood alien psychology better than most aliens understood themselves. He knew exactly how to inspire a Hydrani engineer, how to motivate a Saurid warrior, how to convince a Velkari idealist. He had learned to see past species and focus on individuals, to find the common hopes and fears that connected all intelligent life. The rebellion was no longer just about escape. It had become a movement to reshape the galaxy itself, but they needed perfect timing. Too early and they would be crushed. Too late and the Velkari might discover their plans. They had to wait for the right moment. That moment came when Yelthar brought news that made everyone's blood run cold. The Velkari High Command was planning a massive attack on human space. A fleet of 500 ships would strike at Earth itself within the next 6 months. They want to destroy humanity before your people become too strong, Yelthar explained. The attack will launch from staging areas on 12 different worlds. Deho felt ice in his veins. Everything they had worked for would be meaningless if Earth fell. But maybe, just maybe, they could turn the Velkari's plan against them. Those staging areas will be heavily defended but not expecting internal attack, he mused. If we hit them at the same time they launch against Earth, we could cripple their entire fleet, Miradesh finished. But the timing has to be perfect, Corvin added. We get one chance at this. Deho looked around at his friends. A human who had learned to think like an alien, an aquatic engineer who had become a master strategist, a reptilian philosopher who had embraced the role of general, a Velkari officer who had chosen conscience over loyalty. They were about to attempt something that had never been done before. A coordinated uprising across multiple worlds and species. If they succeeded, they would break the most powerful empire in the galaxy. If they failed, they would all die. But Earth would die too, and that was unacceptable. Send the signal, Deho ordered. Tell all our cells to prepare. In 72 hours we strike everywhere at once. As Miradesh activated her hidden transmitter, Deho thought about Captain Sominjang and the human fleet searching for him. Soon, they would have a much bigger fight on their hands than they expected. But this time, humanity would not face the aliens alone. They would have allies, friends, a galaxy full of people who had chosen freedom over tyranny. The chains around Daeho's wrists suddenly felt lighter. Soon, if everything went according to plan, they would be gone forever. Along with every other chain in the Velkari Empire, the rebellion began at exactly 0300 hours, Galactic Standard Time, across 12 Velkari worlds simultaneously. On Veltharion, Daeho led a force of 300 slaves into the main weapons depot. Miradesh had disabled the security systems. Corvin's fighters moved like ghosts through the corridors. Yelthar and his Velkari allies provided inside information about guard positions. The depot guards were caught completely off guard. They expected external threats, not internal revolution. Within minutes, the rebels had captured enough weapons to arm a small army. "Remember the plan?" Daeho called out in multiple languages as his people grabbed rifles and explosives. "We are not here for revenge. We are here for freedom. Kill only when you must. Our goal is the command center." Similar scenes played out on 11 other worlds. On the water world Hydros, Miradesh's people used their swimming abilities to attack from unexpected directions. On the desert planet Saurus, Corvin's relatives emerged from hidden tunnels to strike at Velkari bases. The coordination was perfect. Years of careful planning paid off as communication networks fell and defense systems went offline. The Velkari had never faced anything like this before. War Commander Thexera was in his private chambers when the alarms began screaming. His first thought was that it was another small slave uprising that would be crushed quickly. Then reports started flooding in. "Sir, the weapon depots are under attack," his aide reported. "Also the spaceport, the communication center, and the main power plant." "How many rebels?" Thexera demanded. "Unknown, sir. They seem to be everywhere at once." Thexera's blood went cold. This was not a desperate escape attempt. This was a real military operation. He grabbed his personal weapon and headed for the command center. If the slaves wanted a war, he would give them one they would never forget. The battle for the command center was fierce. Velkari guards had taken strong positions and were fighting back hard. But Daeho's forces had advantages the guards did not expect. Hydrani fighters who could slip through air vents. Saurid warriors who could see in the dark. Human tactical, thinking that confused their enemies. Daeho himself led the final assault. 8 years of manual labor had made him stronger than he had ever been. 8 years of learning alien combat techniques had made him deadlier. He moved through the corridors like a force of nature. "Surrender now, and you will be treated fairly," he called out in perfect Velkari to the defending guards. Many of them threw down their weapons. They had fought slaves before, but never slaves who talked like officers and moved like professionals. The command center doors were reinforced steel designed to stop military weapons, but Miradesh had built something special. An acid compound that could eat through any metal the Velkari used. The doors dissolved in minutes. War Commander Thexera was waiting inside with a dozen of his best soldiers. When he saw Daeho walk through the melted doorway, his eyes went wide with shock and rage. "You," he snarled, "my pet human. How did you organize all this?" "You taught me well," Daeho replied calmly. "You showed me how the Empire really works, how fear and brutality are your only tools. But you never learned that intelligent beings will always fight for freedom." "You are still wearing chains, slave," Thexera sneered. "You are still my property." Daeho looked down at the metal bands around his wrists. Then he looked back at the war commander with something that might have been pity. "These chains are just metal," he said. "But the chains in your mind are much stronger. You cannot imagine a galaxy where different species work together instead of conquering each other." Thexera roared and charged at him with an energy blade. The war commander was bigger and stronger than a human. But Daeho had learned Velkari martial arts from watching the guards train. He had also learned Saurid fighting techniques from Corvin and Hydrani speed methods from Miradesh. The fight was brutal, but brief. Thexera was skilled, but he fought like a Velkari warrior, predictable, aggressive, dependent on raw power. Daeho fought like something the galaxy had never seen before, a being who combined the best techniques of multiple species into something new and deadly. When it was over, Thexera lay dying on the floor of his own command center. With his last breath, He looked up at Daeho with something like respect. You fight well, human, he whispered. Perhaps we chose the wrong enemy. Before Daeho could reply, Yelthar burst into the room. Commander, we have a problem, the young Velkari officer said. Long-range sensors show a human fleet approaching the system, but they are not alone. There are other ships with them. Ships I do not recognize. Daeho smiled. Those are our allies. Species the Empire has never encountered. Humanity has been busy while I was gone. Through the command center windows, they could see explosions lighting up the sky as rebel forces attacked. Velkari installations across the planet. Similar reports were coming in from the other 11 worlds. The uprising was succeeding beyond their wildest hopes. But the real shock came when Yelthar activated the main communication system. Dozens of Velkari fleet commanders were calling for help. But they were not just fighting slaves anymore. This is Fleet Commander Zexnal, one voice reported. We are under attack by unknown alien vessels. They fight with human tactics but use technologies we have never seen before. Another voice cut in. This is Defense Station Omega-7. We are being boarded by beings that breathe water. How is that possible in space? And another. Ground forces are reporting reptilian soldiers emerging from underground tunnels we did not know existed. They fight like they know our every weakness. Daeho understood what was happening. During his captivity, humanity had not just been building ships and weapons. They had been making friends, finding other species that had been hurt by the Velkari Empire, building alliances. The rebellion was not just about freeing slaves anymore. It was about changing the entire balance of power in the galaxy. Sir, Yelthar said quietly, I am receiving surrender requests from 17 Velkari commanders. They want to negotiate. Tell them we will accept surrender from any commander who agrees to release all slaves immediately and join the new alliance, Daeho replied. But make it clear that this is a one-time offer. Anyone who keeps fighting will be treated as an enemy. As reports continued to flood in, the scope of their victory became clear. The Velkari Empire was not just losing battles. It was falling apart. Entire sectors were switching sides. Slave populations were rising up everywhere. And in the distance, growing larger by the hour, came the human fleet that had never stopped looking for their lost commander. Captain So-Min Jang stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance and stared in amazement at the chaos unfolding before them. When they had arrived at the coordinates provided by the mysterious alien transmissions, they had expected to find either nothing or another trap. Instead, they found a revolution. Captain, her communications officer reported. We are receiving a transmission. It is in perfect Korean. Put it through, So-Min ordered. A familiar voice filled the bridge. Older, deeper, changed by years of hardship, but unmistakably the man they had been searching for. Captain Jang, this is Commander Daeho Kim. Permission to come aboard. So-Min felt tears in her eyes. After 5 years of searching, they had found him. But more than that, he seemed to have found something even more valuable. He had found hope for the entire galaxy. Permission granted, Commander, she replied. Welcome home. But as she said it, So-Min realized that home might not be Earth anymore. It might be something much bigger. A place where humans and aliens could live together as equals instead of enemies. Daeho Kim had been captured as Earth's representative to the stars. Now he was returning as the leader of a galactic alliance that would reshape everything. The chains were finally broken, but the real work was just beginning. The reunion on the bridge of the UES Vengeance was emotional, but brief. Daeho looked older, scarred, and harder than the man who had disappeared 5 years ago. But his eyes still held the same determination that had made him Earth's finest. Explorer, Captain Jang, he said formally. I need to speak with Earth Command immediately. The situation is more complex than anyone imagined. So-Min nodded and activated the quantum communicator. Within hours, they were in contact with Admiral Tae-hyun Park, Yoo-jin's father, and now the head of Earth's military forces. Commander Kim, the Admiral's voice cracked with emotion. We thought you were dead. We built monuments. We named ships after your crew. They died heroes, Admiral, Daeho replied. But their sacrifice was not in vain. We have an opportunity here to change the entire galaxy, but we need to act carefully. Over the next several hours, Deho explained everything. The Velkari Empire, the slave species, the rebellion, the alliance he was building with former enemies and liberated peoples. Admiral Park's response was exactly what Deho had feared. "Bring them all here for trial," the Admiral ordered. "Every Velkari officer who participated in enslaving our people. We will execute them publicly as an example to the galaxy." "Sir, with respect, that would be a mistake," Deho said. "Many of these Velkari helped us win the rebellion. They chose to do what was right even when it meant betraying their own species. If we execute them, we destroy any chance of real peace. They enslaved you for 8 years, Commander. They murdered Yu Jin, Wu Bin, and Hana. You want us to forgive that?" Dr. Yunseo Lim, Earth's top expert on alien psychology, had been listening to the conversation from her position at Earth Command. She stepped forward. "Admiral, may I suggest a different approach?" she said. "Commander Kim has accomplished something unprecedented. He has united multiple species against a common enemy. But more importantly, he has shown that cooperation is possible between former enemies. If we respond with vengeance instead of justice, we risk losing everything he has built." The debate continued for days. Representatives from dozens of human colonies joined the discussion. Some wanted total war against all Velkari. Others supported Deho's vision of a peaceful alliance. Meanwhile, on the captured Velkari worlds, Deho faced similar challenges from the other direction. Many liberated slaves wanted revenge against all their former captors. The Hydrani delegates demanded the right to poison Velkari water supplies in retaliation for their own poisoned oceans. Saurid warriors wanted to hunt down every Velkari officer who had participated in their enslavement. "I understand your anger," Deho told them in a massive gathering on Veltharion. He spoke in multiple languages so everyone could understand. "I felt the same rage for 8 years, but revenge will only create more enemies. We have a chance to build something better than what came before." Corvin, now serving as the Saurid representative, spoke up. "What about justice, my friend? Should there be no punishment for those who caused so much suffering?" "Justice, yes," Deho replied, "but not vengeance. We will put war criminals on trial. We will make them face what they did, but we will also offer redemption to those who choose to help build a better future." Miradesh supported him. "The human speaks wisdom," she sang in her musical Hydrani voice. "My people were nearly destroyed by hatred and poison. Do we want to become what we fought against?" The most difficult opposition came from an unexpected source. Yelthar's own people were threatening to execute him as a traitor. A group of Velkari hardliners led by Fleet Admiral Nexthor had refused to surrender and were calling for his death. "He betrayed his own species for alien slaves," Nexthor broadcast across Velkari space. "This is the punishment for such dishonor." The crisis came to a head when Nexthor launched a desperate attack on the peace negotiations. He had gathered the remaining loyal Velkari fleets and was advancing on the neutral station, where representatives from 47 worlds were meeting. "He has 300 ships," Yelthar reported grimly. "More than we can handle with our current forces." But Deho had one more surprise. The alliance he had been building included species that the Velkari had never encountered. Peoples who had been hiding in the outer regions of the galaxy, waiting for their chance to join a larger community. The Silicon Collective sent ships made of living crystal that could repair themselves in battle. The Gas Giant Federation provided vessels that could fly through planetary atmospheres like submarines through water. The machine intelligence offered robotic fighters that needed no life support. When Nexthor's fleet arrived at the negotiations, they found themselves facing not just rebels and humans, but technologies they had never imagined. The battle was fierce but one-sided. Nexthor's ships were designed to fight conventional enemies. They had no defense against crystalline vessels that could absorb energy weapons or gas giant ships that could phase in and out of normal space. In the end, Nexthor himself was captured when his flagship was boarded by a combined force of humans, reformed Velkari, and machine intelligences working together. But the victory came at a cost. During the battle, Corvin had led a boarding party onto the enemy command ship. He had succeeded in disabling their weapons, but a Velkari fanatic had detonated a suicide bomb in the process. At his funeral, representatives from dozens of species came to honor the Saurid philosopher who had helped save the galaxy. Dayho spoke for everyone when he said, "Corvin taught us that true strength comes not from conquering others but from understanding them. He showed us that former enemies can become brothers." The death of such a respected figure shocked many of the remaining hardliners into reconsidering their positions. Even some of Nexathor's own officers asked to join the alliance rather than continue a hopeless war. Dr. Yunseo Lim arrived from Earth with a team of negotiators and psychologists. She worked with Dayho to create what they called the Galactic Cooperation Compact. The document established principles for peaceful coexistence between species, protection for individual rights, and shared defense against external threats. The key, Dr. Lim explained to the assembled delegates, is that every species contributes something unique. Humans provide exploration and adaptability. Velkari offer military expertise and infrastructure. Hydrani contribute engineering and biotechnology. Saurids bring philosophy and wisdom. Together, we are stronger than any of us could be alone. The negotiations took months. Every detail had to be argued and refined. Some species wanted special privileges. Others demanded reparations for past wrongs. Language barriers created constant misunderstandings. But slowly, carefully, the alliance took shape. 47 worlds and 12 species signed the compact. They agreed to share technology, provide mutual defense, and resolve disputes through negotiation rather than warfare. Yelthar, now calling himself David in honor of his human friends, was elected as the alliance's first military coordinator. Miradesh became head of the Technology Exchange Program. Dr. Lim established a Cultural Understanding Institute to help different species work together. And Dayho Kim, the human who had spent 8 years in chains, became the first Supreme Coordinator of the Galactic Cooperation Compact. On the day of the signing ceremony, he stood before representatives from across the galaxy and spoke words that would be remembered for generations. "We are not here to create a new empire. We are here to build something that has never existed before, a community of equals, a place where strength comes from diversity, not domination, where former enemies can become family." As he spoke, Dayho looked out at the audience, humans and Velkari sitting next to each other, Hydrani delegates sharing technical data with Saurid philosophers, machine intelligences conversing with gas giant explorers. It was not perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was possible. And sometimes possibility was enough to change the universe. The chains were broken. Now came the harder task of making sure they never returned. 2 years after the signing of the Galactic Cooperation Compact, Supreme Coordinator Dayho Kim stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES VFS Unity. The ship was a marvel of cooperative engineering, human innovation combined with Velkari military design, powered by Hydrani biotechnology and guided by Saurid wisdom. The bridge crew reflected the alliance itself. Captain Somin Jang commanded the ship's operations. Commander David, formerly Yelthar, served as tactical coordinator. Dr. Yunseo Lim had become the chief diplomatic officer. Even Miradesh was present, her aquatic life support suit allowing her to work alongside air-breathing species. Supreme Coordinator, reported the communications officer, a young Saurid named Kessatar. Long-range scouts have detected unknown vessels approaching Alliance space. They do not match any known ship designs. Dayho felt a familiar chill. The galaxy was vast, and the Alliance had always known there were other powers out there. Powers that might not be friendly to their ideals of cooperation and peace. "Show me," he ordered. The main screen displayed the scout data. The ships were massive, even larger than the old Velkari dreadnoughts. They appeared to be made of some kind of crystal material that pulsed with internal light. Most disturbing was their formation. They moved in perfect geometric patterns that suggested a hive mind intelligence. "Analysis?" Dayho asked. Dr. Lim studied the data carefully. The formation pattern suggests a species that values order above all else, possibly a collective consciousness. If their previous behavior follows historical patterns of such species, they will likely demand submission to their way of thinking. The crystalline hegemony, David said grimly. We have heard rumors of them from refugees in the outer sectors. They convert other species into extensions of their collective mind. Entire civilizations have vanished after contact with them. Miradesh's translator conveyed her musical speech. My people encountered them once, long ago before the Velkari conquest. They left warnings in our oldest archives. The crystals do not negotiate, they assimilate. Deho nodded thoughtfully. This was exactly the kind of threat the Alliance had been created to face. But it would be their first real test as a unified force. Send word to all Alliance worlds, he ordered. Full mobilization. Every species contributes what they can. And get me a conference with all the sector commanders. Within hours, the Alliance fleet began assembling. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships with their adaptable designs. Reformed Velkari vessels with heavy weapons and strong shields. Hydrani biotechnology ships that could repair themselves in battle. Saurid deep strike vessels built for guerrilla warfare. But the most impressive additions were from the newer Alliance members. The Silicon Collective sent living ships that could change shape during combat. The Gas Giant Federation provided vessels that could phase between dimensions. The machine intelligence contributed unmanned fighters controlled by advanced artificial minds. Admiral Tae-Hyun Park arrived from Earth with the newest human vessels. The old admiral had softened his stance over the past 2 years, especially after seeing how well the Alliance had worked to rebuild the damaged worlds. Commander Kim, he said during their private meeting, I owe you an apology. When you first proposed this alliance, I thought you were being naive. But what you have built here, it is stronger than any empire could be. We all made mistakes, Admiral, Deho replied. The important thing is that we learned from them. The first contact with the crystalline hegemony came 3 days later. Their ships entered Alliance space without warning or communication. When hailed, they responded with a message that chilled everyone who heard it. Biological entities of this sector, the message began in a voice like breaking glass. You will cease your chaotic expansion and submit to crystalline perfection. Your individual thoughts create disorder. We will correct this flaw. That sounds like a declaration of war to me, Captain So-min said. It is, Deho agreed. But we are not the same helpless victims they have encountered before. Send the response we prepared. The Alliance's reply was broadcast across multiple frequencies in dozens of languages. This is Supreme Coordinator Deho Kim of the Galactic Cooperation Compact. We are a free alliance of independent species united by choice, not force. We will defend ourselves against any attempt at conquest or assimilation. Withdraw from our space immediately or face the consequences. The crystalline response was swift and brutal. Their ships opened fire without further communication. But the alliance was ready. The battle that followed became known as the War of Two Philosophies. On one side, the crystalline hegemony, with their perfect order and unified thoughts. On the other, the chaotic but creative alliance with their diversity of ideas and tactics. The crystals had expected to face typical biological resistance, individual ships fighting for survival with predictable tactics. Instead, they encountered something they could not understand. Ships that worked together like instruments in an orchestra, each playing a different part, but creating harmony together. Human vessels used hit-and-run tactics learned from ancient Earth naval warfare. Velkari ships formed defensive lines that had protected their empire for centuries. Hydrani bioships adapted to enemy weapons in real time. Saurid fighters struck from unexpected angles with desert warfare precision. The Silicon Collective ships confused the crystals by mimicking their appearance while fighting with completely different tactics. Gas giant vessels phased in and out of normal space, attacking from dimensions the enemy could not reach. Machine intelligence fighters coordinated perfectly without the vulnerability of biological crews. Deho commanded the combined fleet from the Unity, using lessons learned from 8 years of studying alien psychology. He knew that hive minds were strong but inflexible. They could not adapt quickly to unexpected situations. All ships pattern Omega, he ordered. Make them think we are retreating, then hit them from 6 directions at once. The Alliance fleet scattered as if in panic. The crystalline ships pursued, confident in their victory. Then the trap closed. Human ships emerged from behind asteroids. Velkari vessels dropped their stealth fields. Bioships that had been playing dead suddenly came alive with weapons fire. The battle raged for 3 days. The crystals were powerful, but they could not adapt to the Alliance's constantly changing tactics. Every time they developed a response to one strategy, the Alliance switched to something completely different. The turning point came when Dr. Lim made a crucial discovery. The crystalline hegemony was not really a single hive mind. It was a collection of conquered species forced into artificial unity by crystalline implants. If we can disrupt their control signals, she reported to Deho, we might be able to free some of their assimilated peoples. Miradesh and the Hydrani engineers worked frantically to develop a signal that could interfere with crystalline technology. When they broadcast it during the final battle, the results were dramatic. Several crystalline ships suddenly stopped fighting and began attacking their own fleet. Voices in dozens of languages flooded the communication channels as freed minds regained their individuality. "Help us!" one voice cried in a language the Alliance computers had never heard before. "We have been slaves for so long. Please help us remember who we are." The war ended not with the destruction of an enemy, but with the liberation of countless enslaved peoples. The remaining pure crystalline forces retreated to the far edges of the galaxy, their dreams of perfect order shattered by the chaos of free thought. In the aftermath, the Alliance grew again. The freed species, grateful for their rescue, chose to join the compact. They brought new technologies and perspectives that made the Alliance even stronger. Standing on the observation deck of the Unity, Deho looked out at the mixed fleet returning to their home worlds. Human ships flew alongside former crystalline vessels now crewed by their original species. Velkari commanders shared tactical data with beings they had never imagined could exist. "It is remarkable," David said, joining him at the window. 5 years ago I would have tried to conquer all of these peoples. Now I cannot imagine the galaxy without them. "That is the real victory," Deho replied. "Not just winning battles, but changing how we think about each other." Dr. Lim approached with a data pad containing reports from across Alliance space. "The integration programs are working better than expected," she reported. "Mixed crews are becoming common. Some planets now have cities where 5 or 6 species live together. There are even interspecies marriages and adoptions." Captain Somin laughed. "My nephew is dating a Hydrani engineer. My sister was worried at first, but now she is learning to cook underwater food." "The children are the most remarkable," Dr. Lim continued. "Human kids playing sword strategy games. Velkari youngsters learning Hydrani swimming techniques. They do not see differences the way adults do. To them, diversity is just normal." A new message appeared on Deho's personal communicator. Its Sci was from Earth, but not from the government. It was from a school class of 8-year-old children who had been studying the Alliance. "Dear Supreme Coordinator Kim," the message began. "We learned about your adventures in history class. We think it is amazing that you turned enemies into friends. When we grow up, we want to explore space and meet aliens too. Maybe we can find more friends out there. Thank you for making the galaxy a better place." Deho smiled as he read the message. These children would grow up in a universe where meeting aliens meant making friends, not fighting wars. They would take for granted the idea that different species could work together. "Incoming transmission from the outer sectors," Kesatari announced. "Long-range scouts report contact with another new civilization. They call themselves the Ethereal Communion and say they have been watching our alliance with great interest." "Hostile?" Deho asked. "Unknown, sir, but their first message was an invitation to cultural exchange. They want to share poetry and philosophy." Deho laughed out loud. After facing 2 major threats in 5 years, it was refreshing to encounter a species that wanted to share art instead of conquest. Tell them we would be honored to exchange cultures, he ordered, and prepare a diplomatic mission. Dr. Lim, I think this one might be right up your alley. As the Unity set course for this new encounter, Daeho reflected on the journey that had brought him here. 10 years ago, he had been a simple explorer looking for new worlds. Then he had become a prisoner, broken and chained. But those chains had taught him something valuable. They had shown him what it felt like to be powerless, to be seen as less than human. That experience had given him the empathy to understand other enslaved peoples and the wisdom to turn enemies into allies. Now he commanded the largest peaceful alliance in galactic history, not through conquest or fear, but through understanding and cooperation. The boy who had been captured as humanity's last hope had become the galaxy's greatest peacekeeper. The chains were long gone, melted down, and recycled into the hull of the Unity. But their lesson remained, that the strongest bonds were not those that enslaved, but those that united free peoples in common cause. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders still to be discovered, and for the first time in known history, it was also full of hope. Commander Daeho Kim, Supreme Coordinator of the Galactic Cooperation Compact, looked out at the stars and smiled. The future was bright, and it belonged to everyone,